Well, we're going to get ready to get started. Good morning, everyone. This is Doris Carson Williams, Chief Executive Officer for the African American Chamber of Commerce here in Western Pennsylvania, and we welcome you to this, our first webinar on artificial intelligence, and we're so pleased to have so many of you join us. Dr. Ashish, before I get started, let me just mention, everyone, please go on mute. You'll be able to enter any questions that you have in the chat, or we'll take them at the end. And don't forget to complete your survey, which we'll give you at the end of the recording so we can give Dr. Barad some feedback. Dr. Ashish Barad, MD, is AHN's Chief Digital Officer. He came to Pittsburgh in the spring of 2022 from Baird, Scott, and White Health, a 52-hospital-based system in Dallas, Texas. I had the pleasure of hearing him at a Highmark board meeting and got terribly excited because I thought he has the knowledge and breadth understanding of artificial intelligence that would be good for you to hear. Dr. Barad now leads AHN's effort to deploy technologies that extend the reach, access, and effectiveness for their clinical care delivery, as well as other areas that they're working in. He also guides AHN's clinical informatics efforts, and it's my chart optimization, and I think some of you may have had that or may have access to my chart. He's a happily married man with 2 young children and has had a passion for medicine since he developed typhoid fever at the age of eight in rural India with no access to health care. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Ashish Barad, who will talk to us about artificial intelligence on a macro level on how it can impact small businesses. Thank you, Dr. Barad.
Doris, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to meet everybody. Can you hear me okay, first of all? Just want to make sure. Wonderful. See head nods.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, thank you for allowing me to be here. Apologize for the attire. I just finished clinic. I do practice as a doctor, so I was in Wexford area seeing some kids this morning. I'm a pediatric gastroenterologist, so I'm still wearing my scrubs and rushed over to do this today. So thanks again for having me.
You're just fine.
Okay, wonderful. So, Doris obviously asked me to speak about, the title that you see here about artificial intelligence and the impact it can have on, I think it's called Your Business Here, but that's as defined by small businesses, specifically to the audience here inside Western Pennsylvania. And again, as a physician and leading a lot of the AI efforts for Allegheny Health Network, certainly my sweet spot is inside healthcare and what's happening inside AI and healthcare. However, I think what's happening right now is a moment that spans across any industry and isn't specific to any one industry. And what I'm referencing when I say that is specifically what you're seeing, all this buzz. You've probably heard of ChatGPT. You may have put some prompts into ChatGPT, grandkids, or someone says, tell me a joke or tell me a bedtime story, or, give me, 5 reasons I should go to Paris this weekend. Whatever you put in there, it will, give you some content, some creation, and it's fun to play around with. And that is the world called generative AI. And generative AI is something that many are considering right now to be very monumental. Some will say, and again, it all will be, the jury's out. We don't know. Some will say this is going to be our printing press moment. And I think I say printing press moment. You could say internet. But I say printing press because prior to the printing press, knowledge was siloed, right? if you had access to the Bible, if you had access to information, a book, or most of it was stories told generationally, right? And things were not written down and passed as much, and it wasn't able to be distributed. And so knowledge was really inside silos of information. And as we talk about equity and we talk about things, I think we that is something that we know is at the core of that is who holds the knowledge, holds power, and holds that information to be able to use that. And the printing press really, with the advent of the printing press, and then of course the fact that it started with printing off the Bible and distributing that information and knowledge, and then other books, of course, is it really democratized knowledge, right? It allowed people of any person within reason, right? I won't say it was 100%, but it did allow the distribution of information, of knowledge, of wisdom beyond those that were, in possession of that information. And I really think of this moment within generative AI and what's happening is the potential. And everything's always starts with potential. And the question is, are we going to realize the value of the potential? But the potential is of that caliber, is of that level of democratizing a lot of information that is at this moment in our world is really stuck in a lot of files and a lot of Excel sheets over there and a lot of other softwares that don't talk to other softwares and websites and whatever books and manual copies and so there's a lot more information, obviously a lot more data in websites on the internet and what have you. But I would argue that generally speaking, we are data rich, insight poor. We have a lot of data. We sit on, terabytes of data. I saw a stat that the amount of healthcare data is on the order of, there's more healthcare data today than there was in human in all of human mankind just 100 years ago of just how much data. So the data we sit on is the treasure trove, but it doesn't mean anything if people, and that's just healthcare, and I know that world really well, but just data in general. The amount of data is so vast that we have a lot of ability to do incredible things, but it really means nothing if it's sitting inside different softwares, different places, different areas, and it's not going to the right people that need the data to inform their decisions. So the next term would be actionable data. Can we take action? And part of that action goes back to my term, and I'll get to my slides here in a second, but it goes back to my term of democratizing data. Because democratizing data then means I, as a frontline employee in a small business, have everything at my fingertips, have the knowledge, have the ability to take action upon that customer that's standing right in front of me, or a business decision with logistics, supply chain, whatever it may be. I'm making the best decision for the business and for the customer because I am armed with all the information that I need, with insights and wisdom to be able to make the right decision. And I think that's the power that is in front of us right this moment. And it is pretty incredible. But again, we're very early days on it. You may recall a lot of talk and buzz about cryptocurrency and Web3 and blockchain. And so you don't hear about that much anymore. So, I think with all these things, there's always this, what's real and what's buzz. And again, as all things, when the iPhone came out, Steve Jobs first put that out there, it was kind of a laughing stock, if you really remember, like who's really gonna go buy all this? Like there's the BlackBerry, there's all this other stuff. Why would you ever want to do it? And we see where we are now. So, Amazon, same thing. There's a big story, I think, of the Wall Street Journal about how Amazon is just a fly-by-night company, never going to amount to anything. So you never, right, as in all things, you just don't know what's real, what's not. But I do think, and I will tell you at Highmark Allegheny Health Network, we're very, very much leaning in to the power of AI and generative AI. So So let me, you could probably tell I'm a talker. So I don't put a lot of slides. So because I just speak to them. So I try not to inundate you. I generally think that people don't want to be spoken to, spoken at. Um, so first, I want to make sure that you can see my slide. My video is catching
We
up.
can
I can't.
see it.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. I just couldn't see you guys nodding if you were. So, so I'll start here. Let me put it into presentation mode. Okay. Are we still good, Doris?
Yes, that's perfect.
Okay. So, name this AI powering business. And so again, Ashish, please call me Ashish. Wonderful to meet you all again. So represent the kind of technology stack at Allegheny Health Network. So in charge of the digital tools, the virtual health tools, the telemedicine that we see that we use now every day. I'm in charge of the medical record system as well as all the IT systems, have oversight over that. And my job at Allegheny Health Network, the easiest way for me to put it is how do we use technology to simplify healthcare? Okay, so technology is not by itself inherently going to simplify anything. And I think that's a fallacy that we turn on a lot of technologies and we assume it's going to just do good. And I think we've all been on the other side of that, where somebody asks us log into this or do this, and you say, well, that's just adding 5 more steps to what I normally do with a pen and paper. So sometimes the pen and paper can actually do quite a bit. And sometimes we say technology is going to make it better and actually complicates things. So I think it's very important within my role of AHN that patients have a hard time accessing and navigating the healthcare complex. If you didn't, then we would not be having all these phone calls all the time saying, my family needs, my kid needs, my mom needs, where should we go? That is because we haven't democratized technology fully, and we need to go there. So making it easier for our clinicians and for our patients, our members, our consumers, our customers to be able to access healthcare and navigate the healthcare system once they leave our 4 walls. Because oftentimes you leave with a diagnosis or leave from a hospital and you feel alone. And my job is to make sure that we're with you. And that's where AI and digital really can come in. So that's my purpose in life at Allegheny Health Network. Obviously, this talk and Doris was very clear to make sure this was appropriate for small businesses and but at a macro level, right, Doris? You said those words, so I'm going to try to keep it at a macro level to the best of my ability. I think hopefully giving some examples of use cases and way I should think of it as a small business is something that I'll focus on too. But where is AI seen today? When you get on Netflix and you say, I watched a show, and you get, oh, look at this neat show right next to it. And I think I might really enjoy that one too. That's AI, right? And that's AI saying, Doris really likes samurai movies. Let me tell you, I make that up, but let me show you another one that you haven't seen. But you may be into whatever you may be into, but right now in the entertainment, and this is happening even in sports now. It's really incredible, excuse me, what's happening inside the sports complex with AI and what you're seeing with fans really getting into their teams, their people. You're just seeing it in every industry, but for entertainment industry, it's really AI is at the center of personalizing your entertainment, right? We see that all the time, and the ads we see and what have you. Amazon, you may like this. So you see number 2, purchasing decisions. We encounter that on Amazon every day. You may also want to buy X, and that you're based on what you like. And it's really incredible. And you may know these things as small business owners, but I'm always fascinated to when I learned that Amazon using AI, right? We're going to get into what AI means, but using AI, not only do they know what you're going to buy, they've already shipped it to a local logistics center to your home before you even looked on it on the website. They just know your patterns so well that it's already there. And that is why it's in your home within 24 hours, because they know you're going to buy it before you know you're going to buy it. And they've already shipped it out to a local center for you. News feeds, right? We've seen that obviously with all the politics and everything else, and we'll get to voting decisions, but right, you get your news feeds are very much tailored to you. Whether that's regular news online or now, where a lot of consumers and customers get their news of TikToks and Snapchats and Instagrams and what have you, I mean, that is what TikTok's claim to fame is just pure AI. And it would absolutely know, here's the next video you're likely to see. So if you have grandkids, they are on TikTok and they spend a lot of time on TikTok because it's so good at keeping you engaged, keeping you watching, because it knows 100% what you want to see next. It's very unlikely for you to go into TikTok and then get another video that you're not going to like. It just happens very rarely. And it continues to refine itself. YouTube does that, of course, as well. With web search results, they're only getting better. Google is in a lot of trouble right now because people don't call it Googling anything anymore. They're losing their brand. They're losing their power. They're going to do a search because of Gen AI. Microsoft is making a big play there, and people are starting to search other ways besides Google, where it's had this moat for so long of search, but their CEO is on the hot seat as we speak because this is completely revolutionizing search. Because when you search now, it is personalized to what your needs are and what your history is, and it's not just going to link you to another website. It's going to give you the answer right there without having to go to another website. I think the future of the internet is you won't be going to many, many, many different websites. And that's going to affect you as a business too, as people are they looking for what they're looking for right there in search, and then it's just going to list the businesses that are around you that do this, or are they actually going to want to go to your website and see it there? I think that these are the questions that we kind of have to think through. That might be a decade away, but it's not. It's certainly not 50 years away. And of course, with voting decisions, there is a little bit of a scary world out there from the AI perspective of influencing voting. My town that, obviously you heard about my diagnosis as a kid in India. So I say that from an Indian perspective, there was this massive AI campaign in India a couple of years ago, and there's a documentary around it. But they were able to use AI to influence, to find out who were the influencers, who could get in front of people and change decision. They completely, within a year's time, were able to change the voting dynamics. And let's say in the US from like purely Republican to purely Democratic, or purely Democratic to purely Republican, but they had a different, structure there in India, but it was still like let's say a two-party system. They were completely able, as a kind of a study, to change a city, a village, an area of India from one side of voting block to another voting block by really just crafting these messages and then taking down, using AI to just throw feeds in front of them that took them slowly down kind of rabbit holes, if you will, to change their voting patterns, to change their decisioning. So there is absolutely kind of a scary potential here to really change the way people think by micro nudging them into over time into a certain decision. By the way, I don't think I can see hands if they raise because I'm in slide mode. So I'm not, again, for an hour. I hope I don't talk at you the whole time. Please interrupt me. And Doris, if you see a hand up, please do let me know. And then, we don't have to wait until the end. I'm perfectly happy with that.
Very good. Okay.
Sounds good. So I do think it's important here now to say, what is AI? And, artificial intelligence, it's kind of like, what does retail mean? Or, what does health, what does medicine mean? Well, it's that there's no one easy way to say that. There's a lot of nuances there. So same thing with AI. And there's a National Institute of Standards and Technology that Highmark belongs to. And but it's not meant just for, as you can see in the title, it's not meant just for healthcare. And you can see the definitions, and these are important though. So AI in general is a branch of computer science devoted to developing data processing systems that perform functions normally associated with human intelligence, such as reasoning, learning, and self-improvement. So that is the definition of AI. On the left-hand side, I want you to see the progression of AI. And machine learning is there, and that is just the self-improvement, the reasoning, natural language processing is there to understand language, to look at a document and capture words out of that document, make them structured. Deep learning, neural networks, and then of course you see at the top what I've just talked to a lot about generative AI. So AI does not just mean AI, doesn't mean AI. It is a spectrum. It is a lot of things. But it is essentially computer functioning in some human way, and really needing intelligence. Up to this point, AI was not able to create content. I'll say it that way. It could look at data and it could say, hey, based on this data, we think you need to buy 5 more widgets because you're selling out at a pace and you need to buy 5 more things. Or or it could look at a document, like I said, and use technology to make it a written document into a computer document. But that's great, but that doesn't there's not a lot of human in there per se. Generative AI and why it's so revolutionary is it's the first AI that can actually create brand new content. You can load it with as much information, and it actually gets to a point of almost human thinking. And it creates something new that almost seems as if a human like really digested a bunch of information and say, well, what about this? And that's really what's really remarkable about generative AI, and maybe scary to some. So, numbers, of course, to the big firms, because again, I'm talking at a macro level. McKinsey, large consulting firm, of course, they are anticipating, and I mean, these are trillions, that Gen AI is going to contribute 2.6 to 4.4 trillion dollars to the global GDP per year. And I mean, right, I mean, those are real tremendous numbers. And I think there is just a lot of excitement, I guess I'll say, about what Gen AI is going to be able to do to really increase productivity. And that's there's a lot of technology that's come out that has not improved productivity. There's a lot of thought that this one's going to actually be able to increase productivity. And then, of course, 30% of companies are using Gen AI now, large companies, to scale innovation and R&D. Deloitte is saying 53% of large companies are spending greater than $20 million on talent recruitment for AI tech and talent. And then MIT, there on the right, you can see only 6% of companies in the survey had a production application, generative AI, only 5% had a deployment at scale. So what I want you to see in this is the mismatch right now, today, between the left side and the right side. Everybody's excited. Everybody's throwing a lot of money into this. No one's really doing it yet. And so the potential, as I mentioned at the beginning of this, is great. The reality today is we hope for the best. We hope we're going to be able to, we have to be first. We got to get in line because this could be so massive. But I do want you to know also, you're not behind today per se, because even big companies are struggling. I actually think small businesses may actually do exceptionally well in this environment because you're able to be agile. You're able to move quicker. than large companies. Large companies are really going to get caught up in the bureaucracy and the data security, which you should think about too, which we'll talk about. But um, there will be a lot of Titanics moving around in the large companies. I think some of them will be able to be agile enough, which they need to do. But I think small businesses actually have an advantage here to be able to take advantage of this quicker. And, again, as you can see, 57% of companies had made no change to their data strategy despite the belief that AI would impact their businesses. So I think there's a lot out there that really don't know what to do with it. And I hope that with my talk today, a little bit, you'll start getting an idea of what I could do with it if I'm the owner of a small business. So you can see I've labeled this the Brave New World. And there's a level of this that's a bit scary. And from an employee perspective, you see these headlines already started. AI eliminated nearly 4,000 jobs in May. And it's a very interesting dilemma that we're in. And automation, AI, up to this point, I've talked about a little bit about creation, has really focused on automation and elimination. And what I mean by that, it eliminated jobs and automated jobs that were generally thought of as blue collar jobs. And in the factories, in automation of any machinery, right? AI kind of came in and did it a lot faster, a lot cheaper, and really, in a lot of industries disrupted those jobs that were more blue collar, that we would say. Generative AI is really, I think, the one thing that I'm very curious to see about what generative AI, because generative AI is actually working in the creativity world and content creation world. It's actually going to come after, and I don't mean to say come after in a horribly negative way if it does, but I think it will actually create more angst and more potential elimination for those that are in that world of what we would traditionally say you were safe. You were in the top echelon of the intelligentsia. You were in the white collar jobs that were really, I use my brain a lot. I think about things a lot. I look at healthcare, for example, because that's where I live and breathe. I think there's a world in which if you're a neurologist, you're a doctor that doesn't use their hands, and you really have to look at a lot of data and make a decision on that data. That's where AI is really going to be doing quite well. And I don't say that I don't think it'll replace doctors, but I do think that doctors that use AI will replace doctors that don't use AI, because I think it's going to level up a lot of people to say, I've looked at all this information. I'm your co-pilot. I'm here to just say, hey, have you looked at this? Have you thought about this? You missed this stuff. Here, let me put it all into a really nice summary for you to be able to then make the best decision. So it's a very different world of what Gen AI and the jobs that Gen AI may interact with than what we historically think with AI. And you just see the money down here, the PwC, $15.7 trillion of potential contribution to the global economy by 2030. So they're in line with McKinsey there, and you see these 7 companies using AI to outperform the market. There are many thinking, what does AI do? And if we go in quickly, how can we really utilize this as getting ahead of things? But the business opportunities, the way most big companies, and I think I put this as it really does relate to small businesses as well, is how can I reduce my direct labor costs for operating the business, and from looking at it from that perspective. Secondly is how can I augment my existing talent to be more effective in their role and support the business. And again, you can see that companies that are using it are outperforming companies that don't use it. And again, I will get in a bit to ways you can do that and how to think about this as of today. Any questions so far? Okay.
One question, Dr. Barat.
Yes.
And you just had it up on the screen. I think you said you're going to get into this, but how can you use AI to augment your existing talent pool?
That's right. So let's go into that, because I think this slide gives some examples of that. Again, these are early days, and I think with the early days, but this is going to go quick, is a few different ways I want you to think about AI, especially with generative AI, what's come out recently. Again, it's very, very good at digesting an enormous amount of data and making it simple for anyone to consume. Think of it like that. Do I have a lot of data? Do I have a big book of onboarding? I'll jump to the third one. I have a new employee that doesn't know my business very well. There's so much just knowledge that I need to put in front of this employee to get them to perform as well as someone that's been here for 5 or 10 years in my business. Right? And it takes them a long time. There's a lot of sit next to Yolanda, and she's going to tell you how to do it. And when the phone calls come in and you don't know exactly how to answer those questions because you haven't done this yet. I mean, I want you, hopefully your head's spinning and thinking of all these scenarios and all these cases where you are like, my gosh, I have to invest so much time and energy in my new employee to get them to be highly proficient. And then you have the fear of them leaving you after you do that and starting all over again with another employee. And that is a lot of inefficiency and waste. And honestly, that time period where they're onboarding can be not always performing the best customer service or work. So actually a consulting group, BCG, Boston Consulting Group, did a study on their new consultants and their experienced consultants. And because there's the BCG way, right? There's all this way of how do you going to work at BCG if you're a consultant. And it's an enormous amount of information. It usually takes them 6 months to a year to get it. And they use generative AI. They put all of that material on generative AI, what's called a large language model. And then those new consultants had access to it, and they could talk to it like a friend, like a chatbot, and say, hey, this is what I have. What do you think? I'm thinking this. Was there a protocol for this? Is there a policy for that? Is there a way we do this typically? What are some potential solutions for this consulting, gig that I have? And they're asking me this, and I don't know what the right answer is. What do you think? So those employees that had that they had a control group that didn't have it. They were 43% more efficient day one by using generative AI than not. And now they did the same thing for the employees that were tenured. And Gloria, I'll get to you in a second. I see your hand. So they did the same thing for their tenured consultants. And they did see a boost if they had generative AI, but it was only 13% boost. I hope that makes sense. So if you're a new employee or you're an underperforming employee because you just not get the information, you're just not usually, if you were just empowered with that information, you saw a massive improvement. Yes, Lori.
So the question is, so these companies that use it, do they create their own AI?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So I'm gonna after this deck, I'm gonna go to a website and show no affiliation with a company and nothing that I'm not sponsoring this company. I'm gonna give you an example of a company because that's exactly right. Well, how do I do this inside my business, and do I create my own AI because it's my material? right, Gloria? Like you have your own materials, and how do you get that material? Because you don't want your employee just going to Google and saying, how do I do it? You want them to do it your way and the policies that you have. And I think that that's exactly, so that's called your own, just so you understand the terminology, you are going to create your own large language model, LLM. ChatGPT, if you went online right this minute into ChatGPT, or you went to Bing, or you went to Google Gemini, now there's so many of them, okay? And you typed in anything. Now, I wish I could. I'm on my work computer, and Highmark has blocked every ChatGPT because they don't want to put all that information on, right? So I can't give you a demo. I hope I could have. I actually did earlier today. I wish I could show you. I went to ChatGPT and I have an upgraded version of it that I pay for. And I said, I'm giving a talk as an expert to the Western Pennsylvania African American Chamber of Commerce on the use of AI for small businesses. And what should I speak on? And I did that because I wanted to show it to you guys. I did not just prepare my presentation just a little bit ago. And it gave me a very long, and it said, that's great. You should talk about, and I'll tell you right now, AI can help small businesses automate repetitive and routine tasks such as scheduling, invoicing, email filtering, data entry. AI can help small businesses analyze customer data and behavior and provide personalized and relevant recommendations, offers, and feedback to improve satisfaction, loyalty, retention. AI can help small businesses optimize their marketing efforts and reach their targeted audiences and to get SEO-friendly content. And it can also increase their security and protect their data and assets from cybersecurity and fraud. So, and then I said, can you create for me a visual marketing ad if I was a company? And I used a barbershop example. And I'm not going to be able to, I wish I could share it with you easier. And this is probably going to be, well, I won't, I'll try to get on the ad. And it created within 5 seconds a visual ad. And that's what I mean at the top, marketing material content creation. Graphic designers getting access to the best. I really think you're going to be at risk if you're in that job. But if you are looking for a rough draft, a first draft of anything, I literally in 5 seconds asked it to create a marketing material and a visual ad for whatever business you had, and it's exceptional. It is high quality, exceptional material. So it's really incredible. But that's all going to feed Google or Bing or Microsoft. And so the issue that you have right now is if you're a small business, you may have some proprietary data. You likely do that you may worry. I don't really want to feed Google because Google's going to get it. The second you put into ChatGPT, second you put into whatever, you've put that information right into their large language model. Now, I'm not saying anybody's looking for it or trying to find it, but because it's trillions and trillions of data points, but you are feeding a larger language model. So if there is something that you need to keep secure to you, customer information, phone numbers, what have you, right? There's times where you say, I need to protect my customers' data and my own data. It really then this is a kind of tricky world. How comfortable do I feel putting that into somebody else's large language model and just trusting that they're going to keep it secure versus do I make my own? And I'm going to give you examples because that's what you're finding is now there's companies popping up, of course, to say, hey, and so the one I was going to show you after this, you can Google it. And again, it's one that I just found by just a quick search. So I'm not sponsoring it in any way. It's Jasper AI. And, we can go to the website. But if you look at Jasper AI, that's what their whole business is we work with you and you give us all the material in a data secure way. And we will create a small box of a large language model that is just yours. And your employees now, your staff, you can now ping that for anything and it can be in any format, in any software, and we will take it all. And then we will then just be able to create one just that your employees use specific to you. So and again, I don't know anything about Jasper, and I'm not saying that that's the company, but there are companies like this that, obviously at a fee, and a relatively small fee, you're going to see more and more of this. And you'll be pitched as small businesses to say, hey, we want to do this for you, right? And I do think that that's probably, again, I'm not saying, whether any of these companies, we do, that's going to be the onus is going to say, do I trust this company? What if it gets a cyber attack? What are my liabilities? I do think that, if depending on the size of your business, these are good conversations to have with a lawyer. And I do think actually the world of AI lawyers is going to blow up, man, meaning not that AI is going to take over lawyers, but lawyers that know AI well, and being able to guide, how really should I be thinking about this? I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not even going to speak to that. I'm not close to a lawyer. So, but all that being said, I do think right now, there's a lot more questions sometimes than answers, but I do want you to understand. So, what the potential is, but customer service, here, can you always be just reading every review on my business and letting me know if there's anything that I need to do anything about, from a negative perspective? Two, generally speak, right now, if you go on Amazon today, there's an AI review at the top now, and says, hey, I read all 50,000 reviews underneath this product. They generally say this. It's on Amazon.com right this minute. That is generative AI. So the business can now start, small businesses can have generative AI kind of looking over that and say, hey, will you just give me a general idea of how we're going? And then they can even start guiding you to say, look, and that's what we want. This Jasper company, for example, will do that and say, look, this content showing, that this theme continues to pop up. You don't have hours that customers are really, they would really like evening hours, or this particular part of your product line is struggling. So it will glean insights out of all that. But the other thing is, if you do have a customer service phone line, CRM, depending on the size of your business, it will give the people that answer the phones, the agents, whomever, the ability to, again, as problems come up, be able to actually have first call resolution. First call resolution is going to go through the roof, because they're going to be armed. Again, the democratization of data and knowledge, they're going to be armed with the information and data they need, even personalized to that patient. So give you a good example in my world in healthcare is, I'd like to put all the information around, Gloria, you're on camera, so you're gonna get picked on for a second, sorry. But I want to know, when you call, why should anybody say, what do you need, Gloria, at AHN? It should be, welcome back, Gloria. We have your whole medical record. You've seen us 1,000 times, and I don't know if you're an AHN patient, but we've seen you a lot of times. We know who you are. And you've seen this doc, this specialist, this is what's likely that you need. This is what you like, morning appointments. Here, let me give you a couple of morning appointments. Tuesday morning is usually what you like. So that level of personalization to say, this is what you likely need. Like, I had it all teed up here. I got the schedule. I can book it. Boom, I'm done. Here you go. That's really pretty easy from an AI perspective, and I think that level of personalization, right? That obviously that means a lot, and certainly a lot of people don't do that. That's the differentiator in any business, and so I think that arming our staff to be able to have that level of personalization is something that generative AI will easily really do. So I that is the call centers is 100% what every big company is looking at right now, is putting generative AI into the call centers. So these are marketing materials, content creation. I need I need to be able to create marketing, and that's also, hey, I'm doing a campaign. What do you think? What should I do? So if you need a written document, this is wonderful at it. So we're doing this at Highmark. The marketing team is doing this as a first draft. Hey, we want to promote video visits at Allegheny Health Network. Can you draft me a one-pager a half pager, a paragraph at a 7th grade reading level that is, that I can look at that would make patients want to come do that. 5 seconds. Here you go. And that's the first draft. Is it good enough yet for it to be the final draft? No. But that saved a tremendous amount of time to get you the first draft. So now you have you have the team look at it and say, well, I don't love this, and what if we change this, and what have you, right? But that efficiency gain is tremendous. And again, in a small business, you don't have the big marketing team that we may have, right? We likely not. So instead of hiring a consultant or hiring a marketing department, hiring a marketing team, this is really going to be something that I think for marketing, it's a game changer. Content creation creates videos. So the new one that just came out from OpenAI is called Sora. I just read Tyler Perry is shutting down his studio, or he's pausing on his movie studio because he's so impressed with it that he thinks that movie studios are gonna, unless you're the massive big ones that can make Marvel movies, the smaller studios are gonna really be using this to create a lot of the movies. I mean, this is moving at such a pace that I don't want to sound sensationalist, but there is a lot moving. So I do think that if you're looking for content creation, especially for that, because there's not a lot of harm, you're not going to harm your a customer by creating marketing material. So it's a really good place. The customer service, you still have a human. We call it the human in the loop. So I do think when you start this, making sure somebody's checking it and you're not just going directly to the customer with generative AI output is important. To just make sure that you have somebody looking over it and saying, yep, I agree with that. There's nothing dangerous in that. The recommendation is correct. Yes, I saw a hand pop up.
You have a hand up, Doctor.
Yes.
From Kendra.
Kendra.
Yeah. Hi. Kendra Sequoia. I'm a chief procurement officer over at Duquesne Light, and
Nice.
just more of a comment. I come from the chemical space prior to joining Duquesne Light, and one area I did see this used in, and I don't know if there are any small businesses on here that may be in the chemical business. But I did see it being used. I came from a company called BASF, and we were using it 5-10 years ago. They called it big computing back then, or large computing. And it was we had something like a Watson, right? And we're using it for chemical formulation, because as chemists do formulas, seeing what works, what doesn't work, and really looking at it there. Now I can foresee that definitely helping humanity, move forward, kind of like in the healthcare space as well. Just that, more of a comment than anything. I didn't really have a question.
No, I really appreciate that, Kendra. I mean, look, pharma is looking at this. I mean, the drug discovery space with generative AI is massive, and it's gonna. I think it's gonna be incredible from that perspective. Oh, I got hands when I said that. Okay.
Dr. Berard, I have a question. This is fascinating. So for the small business owners on here, step one would be to create a which one is it? Generative AI? Is that what you're suggesting? I mean, I guess what I'm trying to grasp is there's an amount of data that will have
That's
to
right.
be loaded into the software to generate this kind of information for you.
And I think
so if that's step one, is this almost like purchasing an online system to augment your business?
I think that the decisioning point, it's a great question, Doris, and I think that it is something that probably, there is no firm recommendation on this. This is early on to say, well, how are, people thinking about this? There are certainly people saying, look, I can't afford to go put all my data on a model and bring it in and have something, unique to my business. And that's a fair point. But are there ways to go, at least just, again, it's going to be the large language model is going to be big tech, whether it's Google or Bing or whatever it is. And could you just start, as of today, at least start using it for basic needs? It's loaded with the internet. All the internet's on there. So if it's really just a matter of what's the phone call, what's the address for this location, what's the information I need. It certainly is going to boost information and productivity. All I just want to make sure you're aware of is that any information you put in there is going to go into that large language model. Now, for a healthcare business, right, AH and Highmark is not going to do that because there's protective health information, there's PHI, there's information about a patient that we're not going to load into the internet. That would be a violation. I think for depending on the size of the small business and the comfort level, and that's why I said I think there's legal questions about the comfort level of being able to say, can I put this in? And I, not being a lawyer, that may be another person to invite in a future time frame to think, is there a lawyer that understands the space very well, can speak to it from a small business owner? But I do think you can start there from a perspective of really just using the basic ChatGPT or whatever that tool is. I do think where the space is moving is what you just said, Doris, is I do think there's going to be a service in which you're going to, yes, load your specific company information into a large language model. That is what Highmark has done. But that's a big business. So you're right, there's resources and money and what have you. And I don't know, maybe do Keylight or what have you, but there's information that's very proprietary that we don't want to load into something else. We want to be masters of our data and own that data. And so then we create our own. And right now, what we're doing is we've called our own Gen AI. It's called Sidekick at AHN and Highmark. And yeah, so you can go to Sidekick and say, what is the policy around this? And what's the phone number I call for X? And we're giving it to all employees.
Okay.
As of now, we already did. But again, that's a big business that has the resources to be able to do it. And I want to make sure I'm tailoring a conversation to small businesses. But I do think
Yeah.
that there is the ability, and that's why these companies like Jasper are starting to pop up to work with small businesses. So
Now,
not at an extraordinary cost.
Gerald also has a
Yes,
question.
yes, Gerald.
Gerald.
Hi, I work at Vendor Consulting Services. I have a question about, well, remiss if we wouldn't talk about with AI some of the dangers, right? And have a question about that, of
Absolutely.
course, especially when it comes to AI and how I work in recruiting and placing people with disabilities in the jobs. And
Yes, I know Ben very well. Yeah.
yeah, and there's been a lot of talk in our community about how AI has been disparaging and in the recruitment when it's used in the recruitment process and excluding people with disabilities in that process. For example, there are tools that people will use where they'll have people video record a mass number of interviews instead of conducting interviews, and then they use AI to track eye movement and things like that for quality of eye contact during an interview, which will rule out people with autism or blind individuals, things like that. So examples such as that and some of those dangers of AI as we're selecting what we want to use in our businesses and things like that. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I that's something that I'm very passionate about. Can you I did, let me make sure this goes back to presentation mode. I think the dangers are very real to your point, and I think that like all things, this can be used for good and go the opposite way as well. And you gave some great examples of being able to really use it to actually, discriminate. I think there's also a very vast potential for those that have access to the large language models and that don't have access to large language models. One of the fears I have is that it's not going to be open. So the internet is generally open. That wasn't always necessarily going to be true. Everybody has access to the internet, and you can pretty much get to most of it. And I think that this world is also the fear I have is, what companies are going to do is, I've kind of said it already, you're going to create your own large language models. And then that's going to live in one little silo, and then another large language model sits in another silo. And so it's not really going to democratize anything. It's going to really just say, look, I'm sitting on a treasure trove of data and I'm not going to share, it's mine. So you're creating your own little internet too. So there's concerns around that as well, about what are the implications of that.
Kendra has a question, and then I'd like to let Dr. Berard continue on with his presentation before we run out of time.
Yep, no problem. Thank you. Just a real quick question. So you talked about kind of having it in silos. Has there, I guess there's probably been thought about having these large language models, but then being able to integrate your own personal information, and so that you kind of still have access to the large language model, but using your own data as well, so that keeps that protected. And has there been any thought around that, kind of like a hybrid model?
Yeah,
Or-
no, it's great. It's a great question. I mean, again, so I'll take again, trying to tailor for small business. So probably not going to be something that the small business is going to tackle, but from a large, perspective, I mean, right, Highmark Highmark has a massive relationship with Google, right? And that's who's helping us build our generative AI model. And to your point, it's exactly how we're thinking about it, is that ours is going to sit inside a, protected kind of cocoon. But that's not to say that later we can't start thinking about it being connected to the bigger world, but that data never crosses over, the streams never cross, right? So I just worry, Kendra, that means that we all have to play nicely together, and that we really want everybody to have access to the data, and that it feeds into a central hub. And I think that's where I think government's going to have to intervene and decide that we're going to have a central hub of just general information, but you can have some, really sensitive personal information. But right now, the way I think most corporations are thinking is, well, that I want it to feed my own model so it learns from that, but I don't want you to get my learnings. And if you load that data, even if it's de-identified, even if it's at a non-personal level, into a larger language model, it's going to make the bigger large language model much better. That's going to make your competitors have access to better data. So I think that I think government's going to have to step in. I mean, right. So this slide is to say that, right, there's an AI Bill of Rights now that the White House has put out. Chuck Schumer is putting out this safe innovation framework to think about how we're going to go forward. And then you see on the left, there's a few different acts and initiatives that are being passed, and the ones that are relevant to small businesses that are coming potentially, and that might be relevant to you guys and on the right as well. But I do think that this is something that I presume that the government's going to step in, because this is going to kind of move to a place so quickly. And there is, right, the whole comment of I forget, I think it was Gerald that you were talking about, is remember, these are AI models that are working on data that has been created already. That makes sense? You're loading it with the data. Think about how much bias is in that data, right? So the bias is in the data, and AI is just going to spit out what it's going to spit out based on that bias. So the bias is going to be perpetuated inside AI, and that's a massive risk. And I think that I actually think this might sound silly, but there's going to be another AI that's going to be testing the AI output constantly for bias. And that's the only way we're going to get ahead of this, because I mean, there's no way that a human's going to always be thinking that seems biased. So we're going to have AI testing AI. So the final output is not biased. And but that's not there yet, Gerald. So I think until then, I think that there's a lot of risk from that perspective. And then again, there's a lot of cybersecurity risk too. The AI intruders using AI for cybersecurity attacks is only going to get better. So I do think that there's a tremendous amount of concern from that perspective as well. I'm not going to, again, Doris, I want to be respectful of time. I think it's a minute till, so I'll gloss over it. But this is just generally here is, think of AI as what can it automate, what can it help you assist, and what can it augment. And I gave some examples, and of course I'll share these slides. Considerations, obviously we talked about bias. I do think that one thing that you'll have to think of as small businesses, how are you going to train your staff to use AI? You're not just going to turn it on and say, okay, now you have this little chatbot that you can just use. I do think there's going to be some thoughts about how we get them used to it, trust the output, Obviously the data disparities and regulatory ethics that we've kind of just spoken to as well. So that's just, I want to make sure that I at least show you the slides that I've made. I'm happy to share them with the group.
One thing while he's doing that, this was excellent. I mean, now I hope everyone understands why I wanted him to come speak to our members. And we will be having a follow-up session to this too. What we do, Dr. Berard, we sent out a survey. And this was the #1 item that our members wanted more information about. And what a wonderful way to start it off with you. I want everyone to understand that we will make sure that you get a copy of the slides when you submit your survey. We need to know feedback from you on how you feel the presentation was. And maybe it might be something that we want Dr. Berard to come back at a later date, even though he's a medical doctor. He was able to fit in 60 minutes for us. And so we greatly appreciate that. Thank you so much, Dr. Berard. I mean, this has been just wonderful.
Yeah, I'm glad, and I hope it's helpful. And listen, that was macro. Happy to go into micro, and I agree with you. It's what do? I hope I armed you with a couple of thoughts. I just want you to know, everybody's struggling with this. Everybody's thinking about this. There's no right or wrong answers. So I just want, hopefully I armed you with enough knowledge to say, hey, this is moving and I should be thinking about this. I should be.
It sounds like you, and you're talking to a layperson here, and my members are far more astute than me, that you go on the internet and you just type in generative AI. And
Yes.
it'll bring you all the different sites that you can use, and you can kind of research things out. But you'll be hearing more from us about this for step 2 about AI. Keep in mind that March 15th, we're having Dr. Wayne Walters, the superintendent of Pittsburgh Public Schools, will do our power breakfast at the Rivers Club. We are also having on the 19th a session to learn about the Pittsburgh International Airport from Paul Hobeck, who is the executive vice president there. Mel Procheski, a longtime member of ours, will be coming on March 21st to do the elevator pitch webinar. And those that are new to the chamber, you don't want to miss this. It's called Take Your Ego and Put It in the Drawer and Get Prepared to Perfect Your Elevator Pitch. It's wonderful. And then we have The Power of Your Brand, which will be on the 27th of March. We're doing this in conjunction with Entrepreneurs Forever. Thank you all so much for your time and attention. Dr. Berard, I can't thank you enough for what you did. And stay tuned, everyone. We will be sending you the survey as well as the slide. You'll send us the slide presentation.
I will. Sean.
You send it to Sean,
and Sean.
Then he'll get it out. Thank you again. And this concludes our first session on artificial intelligence. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks, Doris. All right. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.